Hello and a very good afternoon to you. Welcome. We are live for the Daily Show, and it is literally just me today. Just me today. Well, not just me. We have some guests, and I'm really looking forward to interviewing them. Two absolutely fantastic guests. So welcome. I can see people joining. We always like to start with the shout outs, don't we? So let me know who you are. Let's kind of, even though we're doing this virtually, let's bond. Let's create one big friendly womb of radio, a womb with a view, if you like. It's Neil Long in for Russ Kane. He's got a few hand problems, as you know, and he's incommunicado today because he's having that all sorted out. But he will be back in fighting form very, very soon. That much I can assure you. We've got two fantastic guests coming up. It's me, Neil Long. You can call me Longy. In the background is my producer, Mr. E. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
That man is a genius with everything. He's the best producer in the world. And no, you're not meant to laugh at that bit. I'm bigging you up. Shut up. And basically, if I naff something up, which I quite possibly will, he will come and save my ass, and it won't be for the first time and probably not the last. So who have we got on? Say hello. Hello. Paul Claridge, hello to you. Paul Claridge, big up East Croydon, yay. RVB, there was a quiz today in the Daily Mirror, Rob, and one of the questions was, what is a horologist? And I thought, I know that answer. Who else have we got? Barry J. Allen. Hello, good afternoon, Longy. So later on in the show, we're talking about, I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, I was live from a rooftop garden because I was at a film premiere, and it was a film premiere all about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, a day in the life of. It was a small indie movie, and it was a great day because it was the showing of it. It was the premiere in London, in Soho, I'll have you know. And I met my old Capital Radio colleague Neil Fox. Haven't seen him forever, and no relation, Samantha Fox, the model, and it was great. But the star of the show, Sam Crilly, is going to be, because she's the one that was basically written about, her and another colleague who've had mental health challenges like many of us have, and so many people, they kind of do something really good. They kind of turn their nemesis into something creative, and I think that might, and we're talking to her later in the show, and I think that might lead quite nicely into our first guest, who I can see in the green room. Give us a smile, Rebecca. I can see you. Hello, but they can't see you, so I'm going to bring you on. Rebecca Shaman. And first of all, I have to ask, is that your real name?
Yes.
So you really are called Shaman?
Yes.
that is a beautiful spiritual coincidence, like Doreen Virtue, because that is her real name as well. But I've been reading about your stuff, and I'm intrigued to know, because you are literally a shaman and you do shamanism. And my knowledge of that is... Sorry?
Shamanism, I love it. I do shamanism, I love it.
Shamanism, well, you would do, and you have the perfect name for it. So I definitely want to dig deep into what this is all about, because I found this intriguing, because I have read bits about it in various personal development books over the years, but I've never really had a deep dive into it. So I'd love to know more about it. So we're going to really delve deep into that today. Apart from that, my other knowledge of the Shaman was a band that had a hit with Ebenezer Good in the 90s, but I'm guessing that's not your kind of... And move any mountain.
No. But I do know them, yes.
That's my DJ head talking, but that's not what we're here for today. So, and obviously, I'd love to know the connections between shamanism and mental health. Because this is men's mental health radio. It has a sister station for women, of course, but 50% of our listeners are indeed the fairer sex. So we have a good balance. So it's really good for anyone. So tell us a little bit about, well, what you do, how you got into it. Did you just wake up one day and think, I want to communicate with ancestors gone by? I mean, was it some major ayahuasca ceremony that set you on your journey? What happened? How did it happen for you?
Well, it happened about 25 years ago when I was working in a hotel in Machu Picchu. And I was a manager of a hotel, and I had a bit of a mental breakdown in the hotel. I had always suffered from depression. I tried to commit suicide when I was 13 and had a near-death experience and came back. So there's always, I kind of used to fall into these kind of quite deep pits of depression. And I was in Machu Picchu in this hotel, and I'd fallen into this pit of depression and I couldn't get out. And I used to run. And running was a way of working through my thoughts and giving me some space to kind of clear out the thoughts. Headspace, kind of to clear out that headspace. When those ruminations start going, it's really hard to just calm everything down. Anyway, I was running, and usually I take a path, and I saw an animal track. And because I was so, I guess, angry with life and the universe and everything and God. And I just decided to take the animal track. Anyway, needless to say, I got lost up on top of the mountain. The sun was setting. There was no way to get down. And I ended up falling down the mountain. And as I was falling down, I actually realized, oh my God, you know, why am I here? What's this whole thing? What's life all about? I mean, what is this? It can't be just about depression. There has to be more to it than that.
No, of course, yeah.
And a tree saved me. I literally fell onto a tree, and it kind of caught me, and I really saw, okay, so there's something magical's happening here. Like Mother Earth wants me to live, so there's obviously a reason for that. I got down from the mountain, and that night, as I was in the balcony just trying to gather everything that happened, I saw a vision of a shaman in the Amazon calling me to him and telling me he had the medicine for me to help me with my depression and my you know, the reasons why I was so ill.
I mean, you had me at Machu Picchu. As soon as you said that, I thought, this is going to get mystical. I know it is. Literally, when you said Machu Picchu, and then I had no idea what direction the story was going to go. So you did actually see a vision of someone. So it was literally like, if you like, the universe stepped in, if you like.
Well, I really believe that as I was falling down the mountain, obviously I was releasing a lot of chemicals into my body, you know, like I thought I was going to die. So there was a lot of chemicals being released. And I really believe that evening, I kind of had blown that part of my brain that opens up to more dimensional spaces. And I believe that that my teacher was drinking ayahuasca, and we met in a fifth dimensional and in a different dimensional space. Like
so you met in the quantum, essentially.
In the quantum, I knew he was there, and I knew he was waiting for me. And he basically said, "You had to get to this point to see me and know that I exist." And I really do believe it was falling down the mountain that blew open all the barriers that we have in our brains. We don't usually use much of our brains.
We do, and I want to deep dive into this an awful lot more, because you're right. That inner voice, and once we fall into the pit of depression, when we're in depression, by the nature, I've said this so many times on the show, of mental illness, you feel like you're the only one in the world, and it's so isolating. And number one, that's not true, but you try telling that to a depressed person. And depression lies as well. Depression is the biggest liar. So the world would be better off without you. You're useless. Which is all bullshit as well. But when we have our high moments, if you like if we get into a flow state and we get all those 6 bliss chemicals at once, which happens in flow state, I personally believe that does open us up to a lot more, shall we say, information. Depression is like very tight, but as we open up, it like opens the antenna out. So it's not like, in my opinion, and do you concur with this? Because this is my theory. I'll get to ask a real life shaman. Do you concur that it's always there? It's just that we're not always aware of it because of the state of being that we're in at that moment.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone has access to it as well. I just think it's not because you're special or anything like that. I think all humans are equal.
That's good to make clear, because a lot of religions have their favorite people and the chosen ones and all that bullshit. Sorry, but what we're discussing here is essentially universal spirituality, and it's fair to say that God doesn't play favorites, or the universe doesn't play favorites.
No, and actually, like you said, when you're in the flow state, we are utilizing more of our brain function, and when we're in and depressed, and we're just very, very limited on how we see the world. It becomes very black and white, globalized thinking, catastrophic thinking, and we can and it can really fall deep into that. So when I found down that mountain, it kind of blew all of that open, and so I saw this shaman.
And then what did he say? He said, "I've got the medicine for you." And then what happened?
Come and find me, he said. "Come and find me. I'm waiting for you." And this is the real reason why
you didn't even tell you where he was. Oh, come on.
I know. It was
you just fallen down a bloody mountain. I've got the answer, but I'm not going to tell you where I am.
Oh, yeah, you have to come and find me. And if you believe in me enough, and if you believe in me enough, you'll find me. And you have to, because at that time, when you're on a spiritual journey, it wasn't so like you could, everyone's doing ayahuasca. It's easy to find these, everything's really easy now. It's on the internet. But if you look pre-internet, if you were on a spiritual journey, it really was an odyssey. It was a, you were on
deep as Peru and studying with medicine men, wasn't it? It wasn't just like a Google search,
No, exactly. It was, and so I flew to the Amazon, had no idea where I was going to find him. At that time, obviously, there was no internet. You couldn't just, like you said, Google and see what was going on. And so I basically, I had to wait for him to find me. And after some time, I found him deep in the heart of the Peruvian Amazon. I'm about 14 hours away from Iquitos,
Of
which
course,
is the
he wasn't going to be in the travel lodge. Let's face it. Was he?
no, he wasn't, and he wasn't going to have a lodge of himself. He was a local shaman, and
Yeah.
at that time, I mean, it was really far out in a reservation called on the Tawayu River. So it was called the Tamashiaku Tawayu Reserve, and he was on the last village right at the end of that river. And after his village, it was just pure, pristine jungle.
So you found him, and then you went up to him, and what did you say? I saw you in my vision. It's me. I mean,
didn't need to say that. The moment I saw him and the moment he saw me, we just knew. It was
a moment of knowing. It literally was a moment of knowing.
It really, wow. I really believe it was my destiny. This lifetime, I was 25, so it was my destiny. I feel, because like when you're 25, 26, you are starting to kind of formulate who you are, what your
Usually, it's the time to learn to love yourself. It's the time for you. It's the self tank, if you like.
Good year for it. So I ended up living with him and his family. He was a local shaman, and there was no pharmaceutical medicines at that time. There was no communications. They were very isolated. We lived like to eat. We had to fish. We had to hunt. We drank the river water. I completely went native, basically.
I mean, it sounds intriguing, and I do want to deep dive into this a lot more, because I want to know what you do now and how, because you've been on your odyssey, the heroine's journey, if you like, but then the heroine or the hero comes back into the world and then makes it available for everyone, which to me is exactly what you're doing. Couple of things before we move on. A couple of things have flashed to me in my mind. I mean, you said you were suicidal, and did this experience, when it blew all that negative self-talk away, show you clearly that everyone has a reason to live? And I think that's so important, because suicide rates, particularly in men, it's really bad statistics, and this is all about mental health. So given your experience, let's phrase it this way: why does everyone have a reason to live? We've all got a purpose for being here, haven't we?
Okay, so how I see it is that it's a web of life, and we all have our place in this web of life. That's why we're born. That's why we're here. And if we remove ourselves prematurely, as in we choose when we want to die, we leave a gap in that web. And we don't know the influence we're going to have on another human being, how we might help them on their journey, how we might support them on their path. When we're depressed, we forget the value that we have for ourselves.
Which is the nature of depression.
And so when you have an understanding that everything on this, we're all here to support each other, and we are a species, a one species, that actually when we remove ourselves prematurely, then we leave that gap. So that person who kind of, I feel, have karmic contracts with people, so we come almost down here to meet people. Like you can meet somebody and just think, I just know you, I know we're meant to meet.
I've had that
There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of magic that we're not taught about. I think science has really reduced the understanding of the magical...
in a sense, we needed science to counter some of the crazy things that religion was telling us, but it's gone too far the other way. And too far one way, it's superstition. Too far the other way, it's just clinical, limited, black and white, dull, mundane, and stuck in an old paradigm. This, I feel, is the best of both, in a way. In a very real sense, that's what I believe. And so basically, we do have a reason to live. Even so, if you are listening and you are depressed, you do have a reason to be here. But another question that's raised itself very well is, and I read this in a great book somewhere, you don't have to go through hell to get to heaven. You don't, to have this kind of wonderful experience that you had, you don't have to have had such an extreme low experience. And Liz asked this question. I'll be interested in your thoughts on this. Hi, Rebecca. I don't want to fall down a mountain to access deeper spirituality. Personally, neither do I. I'm not saying you were wrong by doing it. It's a wonderful story. But if there's an easier way, I live in the internet age. I want things nice and easy. So what simple first step would you recommend without this extreme low? It's a brilliant question.
It's a brilliant question. So what my experience showed me was that I was a part of nature and not apart from it. And I believe some of the biggest malay that we have in our consciousness is that we are completely disconnected to nature and to our planet and to our relationship with what I like to call Mother Earth. And this disconnect, I feel, has created a lot of the depression that we have right now, because we've lost our trust and our faith in the life flow process.
Well, the irony
And
was all this stuff was meant to bring us together, and it's just separated us even more. I read this wonderful meme. It said, "I went out in the forest. There was no internet, but the connection was better."
yes, it's beautiful, isn't it? And as so when we have a disconnect to nature, when we have a disconnect to the magical flow of life, that's what I like to call it, or the shamanic flow of life, and we can become very isolated and very fearful. And I think also the fearfulness actually also increases depression dramatically, because we feel so isolated, and then it becomes a cycle. So the first steps really is to start your reconnection back to nature. So taking more walks in nature, walking barefoot on the ground really helps to ground us, because there's electromagnetic energy flowing up from Mother Earth, and when we walk barefoot on that, we can really feel that energy flowing through us. Another really good way that I love, a really good tip, is releasing any negative energies, any ruminations out through the soles of the feet as black sludge, and just
how do
seeing
you do that? You just visualize it, do you?
it. So if you're feeling like, because sometimes a rumination, you can't get out of it, and you don't know how to stop it. If you just go out into nature, plant your feet on the ground, just breathing into your heart, and just imagine it just flowing out through the soles of the feet as black sludge, just releasing it to Mother Earth, because sometimes you just can't do anything about it. There are situations where it is what it is, and we try so hard to try and change things that sometimes we just can't change. And it's sometimes the injustices that could come up around that, and the feelings of helplessness that come up around that. And when we come back into our space and our energy, we can feel more in control. And actually, when we feel more in control, we feel more peaceful, more calmer, and more connected.
That makes complete sense. I mean, I studied NLP. I'm sure you've come across NLP, and NLP talks about having a bigger smorgasbord from life to choose from. More choice is better than less choice. And NLP came up with the word response-ability. So the more choices you've got, the more ability you have to respond, the greater response ability given a situation. And I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, quite the opposite. I'm still learning, but I do get that as a notion. And I read somewhere else that one person connected to the flow of life, as it were, which is a mighty flow. I mean, the sun rising in the morning, these aren't piddly little forces. They're pretty big, but we all feel so separate from it. But if we felt ourselves as powerful as something like that, and in that flow, you would be more connected and probably more powerful than 10,000 disconnected ones, wouldn't you?
Well, that's exactly it. And when you feel that life has your back, when you feel connected to a thing greater than yourself, then you start feeling calmer and more peaceful. It's when we feel we're on our own, and we don't have any help, and we don't have any support in our lives, and we feel we're totally on our own, and we've lost that faith in God or life or whatever it is. That's
universe,
when,
whatever you want to call it,
then we can find it really difficult to find the spare capacity and to deal with some of the situations that are coming up.
I can honestly understand that, because when I was processing some stuff a couple of years ago, and I needed that safe space, and with some wonderful friends, Liz, who's on the timeline actually, and we had some really intimate conversations, if you like, just covering this sort of stuff. And to have that safe space and to feel like someone or something greater has got your back, whether it's peer support, whether it's support from the universe, whatever you believe in, or a positive spiritual belief, I would say, like yours. I mean, I think there's some pretty bad spiritual ideas out there hanging around from religion and sort of, which are divisive and toxic, and I don't even want to go there. But the good stuff of it is good, and is absolutely is valid, and I do personally believe that, absolutely. So what's a day like in the life of a shaman? How do you... I've just got to put this on the screen. I'm sorry. Stephen Marsh, go and stand in the corner for that joke. Are you naming and shaming your guest? I can only apologise, Rebecca, for the fools watching this.
I love it. It's brilliant.
Go and stand in the corner, Stephen, with you, in the corner. So what's a typical day life like so how do you wake up and shamanize?
Well, can I just get very clear what like that? So the word shaman, anyone can place their ideas on what that might be and their concept of it. So for me, I call myself a plant medicine shaman. So for me, a shaman is someone who brings things back into balance. So mental health back into balance and the environment back into balance. That for me is it's a being. It's not necessarily a doing. I don't think it's if you bang a drum or you have an altar or you go around in flowy white clothes. I think that's very much the doing of it, but the actual being of it is an understanding that. So for me, I feel like I'm working on behalf of Mother Earth and supporting her in her mission to reconnect us back together, because in order to leave a planet healthy for our future generations, we need to start shifting our consciousness to understand our relationship
well,
with the earth.
If everyone felt, as you say, a part of nature rather than apart from it would feel like hurting ourselves. If we hurt Mother Earth, we hurt ourselves. If I hurt you, I hurt me. And from that level of consciousness, statements like "do unto others as you'd have them done unto you," and I'm not Christian, but that makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more spiritual sense from that level of awareness. If all is one, it would seem silly to. You can't separate the one.
No, and we all are. I mean,
we've all given it a damn good go, but you can't ultimately.
No, because we're reliant. We're reliant on the soils. We're reliant on the worms. We're reliant on the bees. Right. I mean, humanity cannot exist solely on its own. We are a part of this biological web of life, and it's the shamanic understanding is that it's a web of life, and we are all part of it. Every single living species that shares our planet with us.
It seems like the most obvious, natural thing. Why then is so many people in the world think they have to do it all alone and go into either constant battle with the world or feel constantly disempowered by the world? Why? And then offer us some solutions.
Well, I feel a lot of it is Darwinism, and our understanding of evolution, and a lot of the witches and this consciousness pretty much were burnt at the stake about a few hundred years ago. Like I probably would have been burnt at the stake now if that was still.
So having an awareness that you're connected to things and people would be enough to get you burnt at the stake.
Yeah, because it went against. Because if you look at the Christianity and the concept of God, and
they'd have no control over you.
Animism doesn't fit into this understanding, and the anima mundi, the spirit of the world, and that we're part of that. So in order to make Christianity dominant, basically, it basically killed any person that offered a different perspective on life, and so
the cruelest irony is, I think all the world religions at their core were teaching exactly what you believe at some level.
Yes,
and then people that wanted control came along and perverted it and bastardized it, and here we are today.
And also, you have to look at this. We've been living in a very patriarchal, consciousness for probably for about 2,000 years, and so this is, I think, for women who carry babies and then give birth and have this understanding of this oneness. I think it was kind of disconnected, and I do think patriarchy has had a lot to answer for this kind of dominance, this need for power and control, despite how it's hurting anybody else. And
the way I heard it put was the male energy in the world was out of balance, dominant, in the sense that go out and conquer. But I have seen a movement, certainly in spiritual circles, towards more of the divine feminine, if you like, and bringing that allowance and yielding and feminine energy back into the world. And ultimately, I suppose you need a balance of both. We don't want it to flip completely feminine. We don't want it to become a matriarchal society, but we need that again. It's the delicious blending of the two, isn't it?
Well, it is coming back into that now. We are starting to see a shift, and that's only in the West. We're starting to see an awareness. We're starting to see a lot more female empowerment. I mean, the fact that I can be whoever I want to be this lifetime. I don't have to be married. I don't have to have children. I'm economic stable. I'm probably the freest human that, or the freest woman that has existed in centuries. That I can wear what I want, say what I want, within reason, obviously, but within the social norms, but also be who I want to be. I am free to be whoever I want to be this lifetime, and I have the expression.
Radical, isn't this strange that it sounds like a radical thing? This should have been a given from day one for everybody. We love to put people in boxes and categorize. You're over there. You're over there. That one's better than that one. And who has the final say on it? I don't know. Who's better than who? Russians, Jews, Christians, redheads, Capricorns. Who has the final say? It's ridiculous. It really is. So tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about, because you've defined what a shaman.
So
a
for
shaman
me,
is now.
so everyone will have a different idea. Like the traditional word of shaman comes from Siberia, and so for me, because I trained in the Amazon with plant medicines, I feel like I speak on behalf of the plants. I work with the plants to help bring the planet and mental health back into balance. And I work with that with 2 plant medicines, which is chocolate, cacao, and cannabis. Hemp.
Right. When you said chocolate, you got all the girls' attention. You said cannabis, and you certainly got mine.
My 2 favorite plants on the planet. The 2 most
I think I love you.
The 2 most politicized plants on the planet as well.
Well, that's an interesting conversation. I mean, it took that small boy nearly choking before we finally allowed CBD in this country. And Canada has legalized THC, and I haven't seen the country collapse, but I find Canada quite forward thinking. But please tell us, we're going to start chocolate or cannabis? I don't mind.
Well, let's start with cannabis.
Start with cannabis, because then we want the chocolate afterwards.
So, I mean, I came across the environmental benefits of cannabis in about 2006, and honestly, cannabis is an amazing tool for cleaning up the planet. In fact, it's the oldest plant in our history, in our diet. The first fabric was hemp or cannabis. The first medicines were cannabis. I mean, cannabis has been our best friend in the plant world, and
we're wired for it. Didn't Israelis?
We wired for it. We have an endogenous
cannabinoid system. In other words, we're supposed to have cannabis. I'm not saying necessarily get stoned, but of some sort, our bodies need it, don't they?
We need cannabinoids, and the endocannabinoid system feeds our immune system and our brains. It's brain food, and I think this is the reason why we're seeing massive degenerative brain diseases now, is because we're not actually feeding our brains from cannabinoids. And we used to feed our animals loads of cannabis, and therefore we would eat it because we would eat the animals, and so our whole culture and life was around cannabis, really. And in fact, in the UK, it was illegal not to grow cannabis under Henry VIII. To grow cannabis. You had to grow 1/4 of an acre, or 1 rood, ROOD, had to be cannabis. And this is because it could build the maritime industry. So canvas comes from the word cannabis because it's the only seafaring fabric. It doesn't dissolve in seawater. And also
Did you say canvas?
Canvas.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And do you know, like, denim used to be denim, and it used to be hemp from neem. So denim used to be hemp. Used to be originally
I do know
hemp.
that hemp can be used for anything and would save the planet, frankly, because we wouldn't need to make all these fake things. And hemp just grows naturally.
Exactly.
But people hear the word cannabis and they get scared. It's drugs. I know someone that got into that. It affected their mental health. And you buy from street dealers, and it probably can. But I personally believe with cannabis, particularly with the CBD, I think it's important that we know this stuff. I really, really do. And what they were finding was, when they were treating people with CBD, that other things were clearing up as well. And I asked myself why. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I understand that cannabis has something like about 142 molecules. So if you take a drug, like a pharmaceutical drug, like an SSRI antidepressant, for example, that's isolating 1 molecule. But cannabis had 142. So they give it for one thing, and then the other ones are clearing up other things they weren't even expecting. It's really holistic, isn't it?
We call it the entourage effect. So it has terpenes. It has a name. It's called the entourage effect. And basically, it's like you cannot take out a CBD and isolate it or make it synthetic and put it into a carrier oil and think that that's going to help you, because it's not molecules, it's cannabinoids. So it has about 142 cannabinoids that we know of at the moment, and each one helps us with various different human needs, like sleeping well and immune system, and igniting our giving us brain food. And so you have the terpenes as well, and the trichomes, and all of this together, if you take it, a whole plant medicine, we call it, is going to clear up and connect with all the immune system and the brain. And it's we essentially really need to be consuming a whole load of cannabinoids, which is why I always think it's very weird that they've banned this plant. Like, why, if you really cared about the environment, which you haven't even got to yet, and human health, you would ban? How can you ban a plant? I actually it boggles the mind how you could make a plant illegal if Mother Earth is growing it. Surely she's growing it for human consumption.
I mean, I don't think anyone's saying that, go out and meet your local street dealer and get a load of skunk. No, nobody's saying that. But properly researched and properly understood, I personally think, and this is my opinion, not of Men's Radio, Men's Health Radio, but Men's Radio Station. I think it's a good idea, personally. I really do. I totally get what you're saying. Kimmy Lashmar, hi Kimmy. She says, "Isn't this what Aboriginal Red Indians, remote tribes did? Live with the planet." I mean, yes, and I think that's why there's a stereotype that everyone's spirit guide is always an American Indian. I think
it does seem like that. Yeah. Actually, so that was
they're
interesting.
Always broken arrow, and they're very serious and profound, and yeah.
So I was born in London, and I grew up in London, in the centre of London. So I'm very London centric, so to speak. And when I got to the Amazon, I saw how they lived in tune with nature. Like, we literally had to fish to eat. The houses were made from the wood. I mean, there was no waste, there was no pollution, there was no you couldn't throw anything away. There was nothing to throw it away. So it woke me up to our symbiotic relationship with nature. So
do you miss it?
I had to go there. I go every year, actually. I do. I literally, I feel like, my soul is here, my home is here, but because my family is, and I was born here. But I go to the Amazon on quite regularly to get my reconnected back to
and what simple steps for those listening, because I mean we could talk for days about this. What simple steps for those listening can we begin to step into to make that difference to our mental health and to the planet? Because it all links in. Mentally healthy people would naturally take care of the planet. It's all symbiotic, like you say. It's just getting into that flow. So what's a good first step for someone that really did think shamans made 90s dance hits and they don't know anymore?
So again, it's like I said, reconnecting back to nature. That is and also opening up to that life is much bigger than what we think it is. And to understand our symbiotic relationship with nature, which is why I'd like to just quickly come on to Cacao, because I work with Cacao.
I'm going to put your website on the screen, and while I do that, if you talk about Cacao.
So Cacao is an amazing plant medicine because she naturally releases the bliss molecules. She naturally, I call her a she. Right. Rather than an it. For me, she's a feminine plant medicine. Ayahuasca again is a feminine plant medicine. For me, cannabis is also a feminine plant medicine. I call them the three faces of Hecate. For anyone who knows mythology, like she's the ayahuasca is the grandmother, cannabis is the mother, and Cacao is the maiden. And Cacao reminds us of our innocence. She opens up the heart. She connects us to ourselves. She releases the bliss molecules. So she naturally releases dopamine and serotonin and anandamide. And she has
anandamide means bliss, doesn't it?
And anandamide means bliss. So she really works as a very mild SSRI. And actually, if you are having mild depression and you don't want to go on SSRIs, I really suggest starting to work with ceremonial grade cacao. Now, this is very different to then going to Sainsbury's and getting your bulk standard hot chocolate. This is pure 100% cacao that has been cacao beans that have been ground down into a paste, into a liqueur. Has nothing added to it, no sugar or nasties, no vegetable solids. It is just pure 100% liqueur. And if you take that on a regular basis, you will start seeing a change in the way you see it, because in order to feel calm, we have to calm down the cortisol, and we don't do enough to calm down the cortisol. So I always say to people, the first thing you need to do if you're highly stressed is to stop drinking all coffee, because coffee is igniting cortisol. And if you have a caffeine addiction or you're needing that, then cacao is a fantastic alternative to start taking on a regular basis to lower some of this cortisol by releasing the bliss molecules naturally into the body. Also, it is full of antioxidants, flavonoids, cacao butter, and its psychoactive ingredient is theobromine. Theobromine is great for teeth, it's great for skin, it's great for hair. It also helps us sleep better, tryptamines. So it is an overall perfect plant for mental health and well-being. And I have a cacao company called Ritual Cacao, and my aim is to reposition cacao as a well-being remedy for managing stress and anxiety and mild depression. And we're working now. We did a national health study looking at it physiologically, and we're doing more work with the University of Birmingham. And our aim is to show how ceremonial grade cacao can be a fantastic natural alternative to going into pharmaceutical medicines, which obviously when you go down that line.
And I think some people don't even know that this is, I'm just putting your Cacao website on there. Some people don't even know that this is an option. People just shove down the drugs the doctor gives them and not even know that there are easier and much more healthy, non-addictive ways of doing it.
Absolutely. And I just like with antidepressants. So what antidepressants do, or SSRIs do, is they release serotonin into the brain, because in a very basic way that the doctors are looking at depression, they're thinking you don't have enough serotonin in your brain. So what we need to do is stimulate serotonin production in order for you to feel better. But most people isn't the fact that they don't have they're not producing serotonin. It's just that they're incredibly stressed about the state of the planet, or they've lost their livelihoods over the pandemic, or there's situations. It's nothing to do with whether you're producing serotonin or not. It's whether what state of your life is in and what you're going through. So if we go down that route of pharmaceuticals, unfortunately you get stuck into that route. Whereas to manage it, the first step to try and manage it, cacao doesn't have any contraindications. So before you go to that next step of antidepressant, which is quite a big leap, trying to manage it with cacao can really help reconnect. And we connect with rituals and shamanic rituals, and to bring together the physiological aspects of cacao with the shamanic.
I'm just moving location because it's raining, and my studio has suddenly got very, very loud because I'm in a conservatory. So I'm just moving. There we go. You're getting a guided tour of Ceylon.
Lovely.
Right, there we go. I tell you what, I've put your websites on the screen. It's www.ritualcacao, not comma. I'll do that again properly in a minute. But thank you for being on. Do feel free to stick around if you'd like for the rest of the show.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
We're talking mental health, but people can find you on ritualcacao.co.uk.
Also, just very quickly, so in regards to the cannabis, I run a political lobbying group called the British Hemp Alliance. And what we're trying to do is get the government to remove the crippling regulations and legislation that is actually stopping hemp from thriving here in the UK. As we have a net zero commitment from the government, hemp is a fantastic tool to help us reach our net zero targets, but the ridiculous, outdated legislation is stopping us having a thriving industry. So
the irony is that it's not that the answers aren't there, it's just that they're held together by the lawmakers of the day. And it's not that I disrespect the law, I'm sure you're the same, but surely if the game's killing you, it makes sense to change the rules.
Oh, it's time to change the rules on cannabis, without a doubt. I mean, we're in the 21st century. We're not in the 1970s anymore. And we can see that it doesn't work, and humans need it for environmental and physical health and well-being. I mean, cannabis is an essential plant for us, as is cacao. But cannabis grows in the UK. It's part of the UK. Unfortunately, we have to import cacao in from the equator. But cannabis grows prolifically here in the UK, and like I said, it was illegal not to grow it under Henry VIII and Elizabeth I.
That's blown my mind.
It built the British Empire.
I know, right? I'm going to have to bring our next guest in, though. I can talk to you. But please, will you come back though and talk to us more about this?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for inviting me.
About this. And I certainly would as well. But RebeccaShaman.com with a K and ritualcacao.co.uk. Some brilliant ideas. It's been an absolute joy to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a lovely afternoon.
You are welcome. But thank you. Do stick around. And we've got the lovely Sam Crilly. Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I was just listening. And it's so interesting what you're saying. I'm mind blown. Like, it's so what you're saying with the cacao, everything about going the natural route before you go to actual prescribed medication.
I know.
Absolutely fascinating.
let me introduce everyone. Rebecca Shaman, listeners, everyone, Men's Radio Station. This is the lovely Sam Crilly, who I met because I work on Radio Jackie doing the morning show, and I did some sort of seminar to teach people how to use their voice effectively for radio, blah, blah, blah. And you were there, and I got to know you, and then I got to know your mum, and then I found your mum was a fully trained therapist for the most incredible reason, which was basically you. And then the work you've gone on to do in the world, well, the whole family is quite amazing. And I had to have you on. So do you want to tell us just a little, as much or as little as you're comfortable of, Sam, with your story, just to bring us up to speed? Then we're going to talk about OCD.
Yeah, of course. So I'll start from the beginning as quickly as I can.
Yes.
From the age of 13, I was diagnosed with anorexia. Well, I wasn't diagnosed, I was suffering from anorexia. And this was about probably more than 10, 15 years ago. And it wasn't spoken as much as it is now. It was quite an alien thing for your kind of 12, 13-year-old daughter to have an eating disorder. And my mum originally, obviously, she noticed and things like that. And she sought help, say, with my dad and my sister. And we tried everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And I was just getting worse and worse. And in the end, my mum took the matters into her own hands and trained as a counsellor herself to kind of legally look after me. And
she basically took you out of the system and nursed you back to health.
Yeah,
it's a story about a mother's love more than anything else. It's an incredible. It's the kind of thing you make films out of. It really is. And she did, as you can see, this lovely young woman sitting in front of me, she did a very good job, very clearly.
She's done. Sorry, you go ahead now.
No, after you.
Oh no, she's done amazing. She's actually went on. She was just helping my dad with his scaffolding business,
right.
And someone asked her to look after their daughter, and she helped her. And it's just turned into an absolute career for her. She's written books. She's become this kind of alternative guru person who's done kind of NLP. She's like a master in NLP. People say she kind of loves people better rather than treat them as a statistic in the system. She's very kind of.
That is very your mum. Knowing your mum as I do, that's very easy to hear. I'm just putting her website on the timeline.
Yeah, no, she loves them better and kind of treats them as their own. She says she borrows the child for a while or whoever it is, and then they start to kind of need her less, and then they go back to the world once she's kind of.
But that's the best therapist of all. First they hold you, and then they walk with you, and then they release you. Yeah. Because ultimately, any therapist is about training people to have their own skills and to manage in the world, rather than doing it for them or doping them up, essentially, which seems to be the presiding model, apart from the more enlightened therapists. And your mum's whole brand is Hope. She's written 4 books: Hope with Depression, not in this order. Well, let's do them in order: Hope with Eating Disorders, then it was Hope with OCD, then it was Hope with Depression, then it was Hope with Anxiety, and they're brilliant reference books. And I think another thing your mum's touched on is how much, I know you've talked about this, is how much it affects the family as well, and how it kind of ripples out. And if one person's ill, how much it can really affect the rest of the family. So, carers need care too, in a sense.
That's one thing I've noticed, and I took for granted while I was ill. I just had no idea. And I have a beautiful twin sister who was by my side the whole way. I'm astounded how she stayed by my side by the things I put her through. But my God, I think almost the carers suffer just as much, because they're outside of this absolute chaos that's going on, and they're just watching it completely helpless, and they're next to you the whole time.
I know it's awful when you love someone that much, and any mother would want to take their child's pain and just to want to reach in and be able to take that. But eating disorders are complex, aren't they? But I mean, you're much better, hugely better now, obviously.
Yeah, no, I'm a lot better. I actually became quite ill with OCD a couple of.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's sorry, you go ahead. No, were you going to say something?
No. So sometimes when I breathe, it looks like I'm about to say something.
Yeah, it looked like you're going to say something.
Just read my body language, but I'm taking a breath and listening. I need to adjust my body language here. Well, OCD, people use it in a sense of, oh, I'm a bit OCD. Oh, I'll go back and check my log 4 times. You know, that's not OCD. We all do a bit of that. We can all turn the light on and off 3 times, or go back and check the lock twice, or wash our hands once more than we should do. But OCD is when you don't get to your destination because you've gone back 200 times to check the door, or your hands are red raw because you've washed them so much, and they're literally covered in blood because you've washed them so much, or you think, if I drink from this bottle at the wrong angle, my grandmother's going to die, or something like that. And it sounds crazy stuff, but it really tortures the people that have it, and it's so common.
Yeah, I never realized just how debilitating it is. It's hard because there's a scale, 1 to 10. 1's I'll just spend about 5 minutes of my day with that, and then 10's just like 24/7. But I mean, mine was, I didn't know what it was at first.
Well, that's the frightening thing. It's almost a relief to know it's got a name, isn't it?
Yeah, it was linked to food, colours, which was interesting. I think it hooked onto my weakness from my eating disorder. That's all I can put it down to. And it's visual. It's nothing to do with calories. It's nothing to do with amounts. It's very visual. It's very much like colours, things touching, things matching, nothing to do with the nutrition, nothing. It's all visual. So if I had a fried egg in a day, I wouldn't be able to have a Haribo fried egg because they look the same. It's a clash. Even though I know they're different, it's same with the banana sweets, same with the cherry sweets. It colours, and I thought I was going absolutely mental. I didn't know what it was, and when I got diagnosed, it was such a relief. And so many people don't know that it's OCD because it's not cleaning, it's not the light switches. It can manifest its way in, my God, so many different ways.
And it would make sense that it manifested kind of via your weakness, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But you made a film about it, you and Megan Kirby, and you very kindly invited me to be in it, playing a miserable middle-aged boss, which I thought was very unfair.
You played it so well, though. You nailed it.
Yeah, thanks. Unfortunately, well. But tell us all about this, because it was the film, it was the premiere, because you were on the show actually a couple of weeks ago, live from a roof garden in Soho, for the premiere. So tell us about the film and how all that came about. But it's great because what I love about the film, just before you tell us, it just shows people, it literally takes them on a guided tour of what it's really like to have OCD. And it's not just, checking things a bit or washing your hands a bit much. And you've really made it clear in a very satirical, very funny way, but you've slammed the point home with the film. Tell us more.
So we started the film as our dissertation when me and my friend Megan were doing our BA. And
shout out, Megan.
Yeah, shout out to Meg. I don't even know if she's listening. And we were like, let's do a comedy. Let's flip it on its head. If we're in university, this is the place to take a risk before you take it out into the industry. If it flops in this little building we've done it in, and then we can just leave it there. So we're not going to see anyone again. We're leaving. It's our 3rd year. We were like, let's just do it. So we wrote a comedy on OCD, and all, because it's funny. The things you do are really funny. In that moment, it's not funny. But if you're looking at it, and sometimes I laugh at myself, I'm like, what am I doing? And we wanted to make sure, though, we were very aware to make it true to the subject, get across the awareness of it, because we did a voiceover in my head of how it manifests itself. So we're very aware to get kind of the awareness as well as the humor, as well as how debilitating it is. So you
did it so well, because just to describe the film, there'd be a situation where everyone's just doing their thing and going about their business, and that's in the film, but then your internal voice is playing at the same time, which is a completely different reality to what those other people are experiencing, and you slam that home beautifully.
So I was listening to the radio earlier, and I know you were talking about the mask. And was it you? Was it? I was hearing of the mask on your station at some point. The masks that we wear in society, and it's just about that. It's about sitting there, looking fine but not being fine. Maybe you might look a bit quirky. There's some bits I look a bit weird. But it's all about that mask we wear and the thoughts that are going on inside. And why someone might react in a certain way, and also the general challenges of having a mental illness and it being 24/7, this conversation in your head that's always there. It never, and that's I wake up, go through the day, you hear everything in my head, and then I go back to sleep. And it's a day of the grind of almost having a mental illness.
It's exhausting. I have had
Yeah.
OCD. And I can say it is bloody exhausting because you are constant alert. You must be on constant fight or flight, battling off the thoughts, trying to fight the thoughts away. But the thing is, it's that old Jungian thing that what you resist persists. And the more you push against it, the worse it gets because you're fueling it with attention. So ultimately, the cure for OCD is to either, for me, when I was treated, is take the risk and then just ignore it. Really, just ignore it. And if the anxiety raises up, just live with the anxiety. And then you will prove to yourself that nothing bad will happen in your own experience. And then the thoughts will become boring rather than dangerous. That's kind of how I was treated with it. Are there any more advanced treatments now, as far as you know? I
totally agree with you on that one, by the way. I did a poem called Monster on My Back, and there's a line saying, once I stopped feeding it, I stopped needing it, or it stopped needing me.
Do you have your poetry with you?
I can go grab my book. I was going to think of that.
Let's do that. I'll put Rebecca's things back on the screen for a moment. You've got to hear this poetry, Rebecca. This is absolutely extraordinary stuff, and I'll put your website.
Which one are you thinking of?
Sorry?
Which poem would you like?
What's the one where you pretend you're my friend, but you're not? It's that kind of one.
Oh, the one that I did at the premiere?
Yes.
Was that one? That's Unwanted Intruder. So
you've got it, Rebecca. When you hear this, because we talk about things coming from the soul, and I hear Sam do things like this, and I think, oh, she's been here before. You just listen to the depth, where this comes from.
Very dark place.
A very dark place, but
that's where it comes from, though. It comes from that dark place. I think that dark place is what gives us the inspiration and the creativity. I mean, sometimes the depression is the blessing in the depression, is the wounded healer. It's what sparks the journey. You have to almost go down that way
if you have to have it, then it's nice that something comes out of the pain. Adele's made a career out of it, but I will say I'd like to think we don't have to go through hell to get to heaven, if you know what I mean. There must be, and perhaps conversations like this will open up better ways, so we don't have to plummet to the depths to get to the heights. Maybe we can make it a bit easier for us. But anyway, have a listen. But since we have been there and something's good come out of it, let's have a listen to this poem.
Let me just find it again. I've just lost it.
Yeah, because I also write poetry as well, and actually poetry is a fantastic way of expressing. But I feel mine are cosmic downloads as well. Like they come from that deeper place. Like you're not writing it. Is that part of you that's writing it? So it has a energy around it that gives you.
It's a flow. It's like you're channeling it. Because I've been in flow states and I know exactly what you mean. Effortless effort.
Yeah.
That's the place where I write the poetry from. Normally
that is also a place of mental health, by the way, just throwing that out there. You cannot be ill in a flow state. I'm convinced they're mutually exclusive. If you're in a flow state, mental illness wouldn't be on your radar. We wouldn't need to have conversations like this. So I'm all for flow states. Sam, let's hear what you've got.
Okay, so it's called An Unwanted Intruder.
Right.
I lay there asleep in peace on my bed, avoiding waking to confront the demon in my head. Losing myself in my beautiful dreams, feeling free, well, for what it seems. I wake and I feel the constraint around me, face to face with the monster that's found me, reading out a list of rules I should follow, each with a meaning that seems so hollow. But as I do one, it makes me do more. If I ever missed, it would yell as it saw. I obeyed every rule, scared of upsetting it. It knew it could own me, and I was letting it. Drained and tired from doing what it desired, I was its own personal slave it had hired. So consumed in the rituals I had to do, I was losing everything that was once true. My freedom was jailed, imprisoned in a hell I held. Watching my loved ones fall apart beside me, it was time I set fire to the light inside me. This presence was my enemy and not my friend, a relationship that I needed to end. I burnt my bridges and I cut my ties. I ripped it apart and said my goodbyes. I have the freedom now to live my life and be free, but over my shoulder, it's always watching me. Its shadow lingers in the distance and whispers to me in its persistence. But I stand strong and I walk past its existence. I normally read a bit slower, but I know it will be a bit
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Isn't that amazing?
Expressed.
Now we can see, isn't it great, Rebecca? Yeah. She's been here before. Old soul. A-dayWithOCD.com. Can you watch the film? It's on YouTube as well, isn't it?
It's on YouTube, yeah, but we did fix one of the helplines at the end of the video. So we are reloading it up. But yeah, it's called A Day with OCD. And
so if someone types in A Day with OCD, Sam Crilly, they'll find it, yeah?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, I'll be there somewhere.
Yeah, or hit me up on Facebook, Neil Long DJ, and I'll point you in the direction. I mean, it's a wonderful film, and thank you for letting me be in it as well. I don't think I'm going to win any awards, or sack comedians who've been rude about my wife.
Boss, Neil Long will do.
What's that?
Grumpy Boss, Neil Long is the one.
I think that's most unfair.
Yeah, you were so good, but we're going to do a sequel, A Day with Anxiety.
Oh.
That's being written at the moment, and we would love to cover every single mental health in exactly the same way we've done this one.
I love the comedy factor in it, because you found acting was a way to kind of conquer your issues, didn't you? In a sense of acting them out. So the issue was there, but you're responding to it and being bigger than it. That kind of gives you the power over it. Does that make sense? And I think many people use acting and drama as a kind of catharsis or to heal, don't they?
Yeah, for many reasons. It was when I started acting, that was when I started to really recover. Was one, because you're escaping yourself, you're escaping into a different character for a while. So you're losing all your demons and you're having that space.
Are you escaping yourself? Or are you becoming your true self at last?
Probably if it's some weird devil, I'm becoming myself.
Not fair. Not fair.
I love the
That's not where I was leading with that, and you know.
You almost escape into another person for a while, but also you find this love for something more than the illness. You're in love with this illness, and you obey everything, and you have to do everything right.
Because it pretends to be your friend.
It pretends to be your friend. It pretends to be this lovely friend.
I'm keeping you safe. Everyone will be safe if you do what I tell you.
Into this dark
Nothing bad will happen ever. Just touch the light bulb 20 times.
Yeah, that's it. It's bizarre, but it does. It makes you feel like you have to just obey everything. But once you almost get this, I don't know, weird, especially with anorexia, you get this weird buzz when you do it all. And then when you get this buzz and you're like, yeah, I'm in control. I'm really in control. And then you find something else you love more than it. And when it stops you doing that, you realize you're not in control. I'm more in control if I'm doing the things I love and the things I want to do. And that's when you start to lose it, is when you find something like that.
Yeah. So don't fight it as such, but just drown it out with something that you love and that's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that would be spiritually aligned, wouldn't it, Rebecca?
Again, it's fear. It works on the fear, doesn't it? The false expectation altering reality. If we don't do it, something bad's going to happen because we don't have a higher sense of faith in life. So we're having to almost create one that makes us feel safe within a container, and unfortunately becomes very unhealthy because we're in an unhealthy society. I mean, we're living in an unhealthy society, so our behaviors become unhealthy.
Again, we're doing the best given the circumstances surrounding us, but there are better and higher ways, of course.
It's so complex. Society is so complex now, and the brain just sometimes is overwhelmed with how it can manage it all. So actually doing something simple like washing our hands or turning off is it's tangible and simple. And because I've also
the one thing I can control is washing my hands, and my God, I'm going to control that. And I've said this a lot to people who have addictions, because I've known people that have been addicted to alcohol, for example, and they're drinking it to feel better, and it's a good intention, but a crap strategy. It just creates more problems, and the intention behind it is innocent, but the result is making more problems for ourselves. And I guess that's really what you're talking about, isn't it, Sam? I think we could sum up today's show in one word: hope. There is hope with depression, with anxiety, with OCD, with eating disorders, and for people that roll down mountains and meet mystical shamans. What a story. Have you been offered the film rights for that? Because you should have.
Actually, I have a book, The Shaman's Last Apprentice, if anyone wants to read the story.
Of course, yes. There is a YouTube video. Yes, it's on your website, isn't it? Where can people find that?
It's on YouTube, The Shaman's Last Apprentice. It shows where I lived and the story what happened to me. And there's a book as well about my experiences in the Amazon, and gives you an understanding of ancient Peruvian shamanism, ayahuasca shamanism, plant medicine
That's
shamanism.
brilliant. Well, there was your website address on the screen again, ritualcacao.co.uk.
And it's on RebeccaShaman.com. If you look on, if you go onto my website, you'll see the video where you can click on.
Hold up, there it is. That's the one.
Yeah.
I was doing them both. So that's the one where you'll find it. So for Cacao, it's the Cacao one, obviously, and Rebecca Shaman. And if you'd like to learn more about A Day with OCD, I'm going to stick that one on the page right now. I'm operating everything myself here. That's adaywithocd.com. Or if you type in A Day with OCD, Sam Crilly or something like that, you'll definitely find it. And if you want to learn more about Lynn's work, Sam's amazing mum, who is an absolutely inspirational woman, as so many are, lyncrilly.com, and you can find all about her work there. Sam.
With the film, just quickly, if it doesn't come up, my Instagram is Samantha Jade Crilly, CRILLY, because even I typed it in on YouTube and it didn't come up. So if I would have posted the link on that.
I'll get Mr. E, our technical man, to do a bit of SEO for you.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
so
sure about YouTube.
It's whizzed by today. That is all we have time for. Can I just say, Rebecca Shaman, thank you so much for being on. We will have you back on because I find your story intriguing, and we should all do more of that. And Sam, I'd like to get you back on with your mum at some point as well.
Yes. That'd be amazing.
And they're a spitting image of each other. You can tell their mother and daughter straight away because they look just the same. Both lovely. So lovely to have you on, Sam and Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
It has been absolutely brilliant, and I knew this would happen. I've gone over time, so it's time for me to say thank you to Mr. E, my producer, and thank you for Russ for having this opportunity. And we will keep you updated on how Russ is doing, of course. He is going to be back very, very soon, so not to worry. You won't be left in my hands for too much longer, certainly not alone anyway. Right, shall we just stay on and have a party? Woohoo! What have I got? Water. Never mind. Oh, well. To everyone tuning in, thank you so much. And we'll be back on Wednesday for another daily show from midday. In the meantime, love you, hug you, squeeze you. Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in.